United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Bill De La Pena, absent. Director Fox, absent. Director Gibson,
Present.
Director Jones,
Here.
Chair Skay.
Here. We have a quorum, and we do have some public speaker cards. First up, Stanley Colton, sorry about that. Please come to the podium.
Where do I go? Over there?
Right over there to the microphone, if you would.
Okay. Is that on? Everybody can hear?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In looking over the agenda, some of my comments may not just be public comments, but some of the other things you have on here. So
That's fine.
I would like to start off with one thing that occurs to me that I think influences anything that's done out here, and that's anytime I've talked to COSCA about something, we have no money. Anytime I wanted them to get involved with something, we have no money. So we've gone and done it ourselves. I live in a development called Lindmere, which is at the end of Jan's, and the homes are $1.5 million to $1.7 million in that range. And we've made some of our own improvements, funding that with our own money that we raised. But now there's things that we want to do, and I look to see that you're going to probably look at the priorities for potential acquisition on open space. And my thoughts are that if you can't manage COSCA properly with the open space that you now have, why do you want to go spend more money and not be able to manage that you add to it? We're surrounded totally by COSCA, by Wildwood Park, and there's a couple of other areas. The shrub, not even the trees, but the brush is 5 foot tall and pushing down parts of the fences along the trails. So, to me, when I heard that and I saw this in the paper, I said, I don't understand the logic of looking to to attain more when you can't manage what you have. So I've talked to the fire department. I'm working on a presentation that I'm going to approach COSCA again. We want to build a 40-foot wide fire break around all of COSCA's property that is adjacent to our property, our fuel modification area, for protection of fire. And I called one of the park, well, we've never had a fire. And I said, does that mean you never can have a fire? Look what happened with Dos Vientos, is that the way you pronounce it? Look what happened with them. They had taken it on themselves to extend their fuel modification, and I think that was a great help to not getting any houses lost, or maybe one or two only. And they're the same property manager that manages our property, Emmons Company. So that is a wonderment to me that we don't have the money now, and we want to. Evidently, you must be thinking of having some money, or else you wouldn't be discussing and going out to buy more property or looking to buy more property. I don't know. Maybe that's a separate budget and separate. I don't know, but we've done a number of things. Right now, we're rebuilding the fire road for the fire department, our rear gate, which is just for the fire department, and we're tearing out what was there, and we're putting in new paving and so forth to make it, because their equipment is so heavy and so forth. And, that's a $20,000 thing that we're going to do. It's like a driveway we're putting in there. it was just DG and it didn't work. It rained when we had that little bit of rain, and it washed everything out. So anyhow, we do those things, but if we're thinking that we would build this fire break, but who's going to take care of it afterwards? We would take out everything within that, and I'm having plans prepared to show COSCA, and we've done a number of things. Fortunately, the group there can raise money. They're pretty well affluent, and that's, we don't mind doing that. But who's going to take care of it afterwards if you don't have the funding, or you don't have a way of raising the funding? I don't know. That's the one comment that I would make. And when I saw that, I maybe will make more comments if you'll allow me. Afterwards.
Your time is sort of running out for this.
All right, I'm out of time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Colton. Yes, raise a lot of issues that have good answers or are subject to further discussion, and I'm sure you'll be working with staff. But in any event, let's go on to Paul Orcutt.
Pass those over.
I promise I will.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
I don't believe I'll take the 3 minutes, but good evening, board. I recognize many of you from the CRPD meeting that I attended last week. My name is Paul Orcutt. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks since 1969. I currently live at 930 Bright Star Street, which is my house backs onto the park at the terminus of Avenida de los Arboles, the Wildwood Park trailhead. I'm surrounded by park goers in my home on 3 sides, so I am probably one of the more impacted residents in the Wildwood area by the recent issues that are happening at Wildwood Park. I've lived here since 1969. I've lived in that home for 32 years. I have never felt the need to ask for the city's help or any of the other parts of the city because I believe the city of Thousand Oaks has done an amazing job. It's been an amazing place for me to grow up and to raise a family until recently. And I felt it important. In fact, this past year I have spoken at quite a few meetings about some issues in Wildwood Park, and I'm asking for your help. My requests are pretty simple. Some of my other neighbors are going to speak, and they're probably going to ask for more long-term type things. I'm looking for more short-term type things. My personal plans are to remain in my home for about 5 years, at which time I'm going to retire and want to sell. And I would like to be able to sell my home without Wildwood Park being a deterrent from selling my home. First thing I'm looking for is that Wildwood Park establish and maintain reasonable operating hours. There is a sign posted that says, per CRPD code 303, the park closes at 9 o'clock. I did a little bit of research on CRPD code 303, and it basically states that the park is open from 7 a.m. to the public from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. unless otherwise posted. So I'm reading between the lines and figuring out that Wildwood Park should be open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. because it's posted right now that it closes at 9. Since I attended the last meeting, the gates the following day, CRPD started practicing at closing the gates. They have closed one gate every single night and left the other one open. My request would be that both gates be closed, and if people are in there after hours, then they would have consequences such as having their vehicles towed. That would severely, I believe, limit calls to law enforcement. Law enforcement has been extremely responsive. However, that's expensive for the city, and it could be alleviated by closing those gates. My second request is to do something to control the dust that comes off of that parking lot 24/7 onto my property. My house is completely full of dust. The backyard needs to be hosed off when I can use water weekly, and the dust rolls off the house. Closing the gates, of course, would cut that dust in half. And the third one, which is the more difficult one, is to make a reasonable effort to contain the people in the park and prevent them from trespassing on homeowners' property, adjacent homeowners' property. That will probably be solved through permit parking. We are actively getting signatures for permit parking. There's a lot of interest. The biggest concern, of course, is the petition that we have that we're being asked to sign is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday holidays only. We may actually need to extend that once the park closes, because those people may park all night long in front of our homes, and that could be a problem where we would need to extend that. Additionally, I'm asking COSCA to do what they can to influence the city to perhaps waive the associated fees that would be absorbed by the homeowners, such as the permits and the signage. That would be at a later date when we do get all the signatures. But the biggest problem that we're getting with the signatures is people don't believe they should have to pay for it because they didn't cause the problem. That's all I have to say. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm available. You have my phone number.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Orchid. Appreciate your comments. Robert Elias.
Hello. Robert Elias, 914 Bright Star Street. I've lived in Thousand Oaks for 11 years. Moved out to Wildwood. Absolutely loved it. Came out there when my kids were very, very young, and primarily for the parks and for the hiking trails and everything. And I won't repeat a lot of what Paul kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but we are next door neighbors, so that happens. But I don't know if I'd make the same decision now, because the park and the conditions there would be a major deterrent. Just the cars whizzing down the road. I had the privilege of speaking last night in front of the city council and the mayor in and around the budgeting and the priorities for the city. And one of the things that came out from the surveys that were done were two areas that just jumped to the top of where residents want to see the city put their funds. And one was open spaces, and the other one was in and around police and law enforcement. And I thought that those were two very interesting areas when that came, because there is some cross-section or some crossover with the topic that we're discussing here. Open space, as the first gentleman speaker had mentioned, doesn't necessarily mean acquiring more open space. It includes, and to a large degree, it's maintaining the current open space that we have. My understanding is that the ranger headcount has not increased in many years. However, we keep acquiring new open space. So I encourage the board to work to alleviate that, and I just had 3 quick points. One is enforcing existing codes and rules, and just to echo what Paul had said in terms of closing the parking lot at night, it's an existing code. It's 303. It's posted. That needs to be done. The second point is liability. The summer is coming. A lot of what we've gotten after we give public comments is, hey, that's great. The weather's warming up. The waterfall's drying out. It's dry outside. People are going to go away now. That's not necessarily the case. Now that it's getting warmer, kids are out of high school. They're going to be parking across the street at night, drinking, smoking, doing donuts in the parking lot. It's only a matter of time till someone gets hurt. And then there's a liability issue with the city. And then the third point would be just locking the gate at night. I mean, and again, this is a simple short-term thing. It's a padlock and a chain. Would possibly divert resources away from the police having to come out multiple times. We had an issue last week where the 2 police squad cars came off for an alarm that was going off for 2 hours. Just silly things like that. There was a camper parked overnight. I circled the hydraulics, the stabilizers were down. This guy was there at 5:45 in the morning when I woke up with, towing a little SUV behind. So this was not just someone passing through. Called the police for that. I'm almost embarrassed to call the police for things like this, because I'd rather have them on the other side of town busting some gangsters. But it's just something that we have to do. So to close, Fire and rescue is another issue there, and the dehydration and the helicopters coming on the weekend. So again, enforcing the current rules, and the bottom line is we've been at this for 5 months. Many of my neighbors and I have been to multiple meetings, multiple departments. We've kind of done our part, and we've called the police. We've been good citizens, and now we're just asking you as the committee to tell us what you guys can do to help us out in the short term, and then maybe have an eye on long-term goals as well to resolve the issue, because this is going to start up again in the months to come and then into next year, regardless of what happens. So asking for closing of the gate to be a great first start. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Leachock. I'm also a resident of Thousand Oaks in the Wildwood area. Most of you I've pretty much talked to with various meetings going on since January, so I'm not going to go over a lot of the issues dealing with Wildwood right now, especially within 3 minutes. Not a heck of a lot of time, considering that we've put in 5 months worth of talking with various departments. I've talked with like 5 or 6 departments, and we do have things kind of in motion, but we need to follow through. And so I'm going to talk about the small picture, and I'm going to talk about the big picture. The small picture is our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is being impacted by the traffic, the increase in people coming. Social media is driving a lot of it. There are problems with speed going down the street, the volume of cars, the pollution coming from those cars, the noise. Social media is, anyone that uses social media uses the parking lot address at the end of Arbalest as the sole parking lot for Wildwood and the waterfalls. And the GPS actually directs them down Bright Star Street, tells them to get off of Arbalest, go down Bright Star, and then cut back over onto Arbalest to get into the park. There is the gate issue at night. People come over and do donuts at night, especially during the summer when it's warm. It stirs up clouds of dust that literally are 3 stories tall and drift over the houses. There's things that go on in the park that teenagers and young 20 types are going to be doing, and I don't want to know what those are, but they're doing them. Okay? There is liability issues. There's security issues. So, that being said, long term, part of the whole thing with the 40th anniversary of COSCA right now, it's a great opportunity to not only discuss about acquiring more land, because I'm an avid supporter of acquiring more land. However, we got to figure out a way to maintain the land that we have and the land that we're going to acquire so that it is in good use in 40 years from now. And right now, we're kind of failing on that. From what I understand, there's 6 park rangers. That's about the same number since 2006. Matt could correct me on that if I'm wrong. During that time, the open space is up over 15,000 acres of space, which is great. We need that. It's a selling feature to the city. And you have all the recreational parks, and the rangers monitor both types of parks. So they're stretched thin. I mean, even at the recreational park, I have a hard time taking my dog to the park just for the fact that there's people there often with their dogs off of leashes a lot of times, and during the summer, a group of them come out at night at like 6, 7 o'clock at night. You can't call the police because they won't do anything unless a bite occurs, and you really can't call the animal control because there's only 2 of them for the Canelo Valley, and they're spread thin and dealing more with wild animals. So what do you do? So that's taken away the enjoyment in my lifestyle. Going forward, we should step back, get more rangers, to figure out what we need to do to maintain the existing parks and to acquire, so that it's both protecting the parks, because even with this past year, the trails have been damaged. People were going into the park while it was raining, and at Wildwood, because of the type of soil there, it caused damage to the trails, which cost money to fix. And we need to figure out a way to have a plan going forward. One of the hardest things that I've encountered over the last 5 years, or 5 months of going through this, I've talked to like 5 or 6 departments throughout the city. And each one says, okay, well, we could do this, this, and this, but here's where I got to stop because this is all that I do. And it doesn't seem like there's a cohesiveness between all the departments whenever it comes to a major problem. There should be a task force or some kind of committee or just some kind of almost project manager that because this is Wildwood, we have all these different plans, but it's going to take a major region-wide type plan to basically distribute the amount of people that's coming to Wildwood, figure out other places that they could park so that you got a regional park, but you got a neighborhood parking lot, yet there's 2 other parking lots that also have access to the park, but technically they're not part of Wildwood. They're part of Caneo Canyons. Doesn't show up on social media, doesn't show up on the website, and even the parking lot on the north side off of Santa Rosa is not even a dedicated parking lot for Wildwood. There's no mention of it. And we're trying to get an address for it now, because with an address, you can now point social media to that address. So a lot of things have been discussed with various departments, pretty much almost everyone here I've talked to. It would be nice if there would be some kind of committee or some kind of project manager or some person that, as a neighbors, we could figure out what's going on and stay on top of this, as well as the different departments could stay on top. And let's get this through this thing together, attack it from a regional point of view. And also, one other thing, in last night's meeting with the city council, the priorities, one thing was about Amgen and about a hotel. One of the best areas near Amgen for a hotel also coincides with putting a parking lot and a gateway to Wildwood off of Rancho Caneo. There's 4 properties there that they're not developed yet, right on the rim, be a beautiful spot for a luxury hotel that Amgen is requesting. And COSCA does have access. They have the right-of-way to a fire road there. And once the land is developed there, which, frankly, I would love it for it to be undeveloped, but it's right in the middle of the office park. It's going to be. The best we could do is, at least then, once it's developed, get the trail going around it, make a formal gateway at Rancho Caneo. That way you got the traffic coming off the freeway that goes directly there, not through the neighborhood. You get the benefit of it going through the economic part of town, right where all the shops and everything are. And you also have a beautiful gateway where it's a beautiful view there whenever you come into it, rather than coming down Lynn, traffic, coming down Arbalest, residential. To be honest, the parking lot at the end of Arbalest is kind of dinky, and it's not that impressive. And just to let you know what kind of people are going there, a couple weeks ago, well, about a month ago, Four Seasons Hotel hired a tour company that ran a shuttle bus between an insurance convention going on over there and Wildwood, and ran a shuttle bus back and forth throughout the day.
They should have offered some donation, shouldn't they?
Exactly. And once again, Westlake gets the benefit of the hotel. We get the traffic.
Yeah. Okay.
So, in closing, I think we need to approach this from a big regional point of view. Now is the opportunity to take a step back, figure out a way to acquire more land, but also figure out a way to maintain it so that we're able to guarantee the land going forward and not impact the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Lechak, and I think your points are certainly have been heard, and actually a number of those things are on the table. So we have one more speaker, Mr. David Lake, and then I'll ask Mr. Friedel to make a few comments.
Thank you. My name is David Lake. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. I actually live next door to Paul and Rob. And what they said is just, I'm not going to reiterate everything that they said. I've emailed my suggestions for regional planning type ideas to Shelley Mason and some of the board members. What I would just like to add is that this parking lot at the end of Arbalest is ruining our neighborhood. It draws over 1,000 car trips every weekend down small residential streets into our neighborhood, and there's actually no reason whatsoever for it to exist, given all of the parking opportunities that are available to be developed at entrances to Wildwood Park, or that could be connected easily to Wildwood Park. There's absolutely no reason for this parking lot to even exist in a residential neighborhood. It makes no sense. It's a planning abomination. It should be eliminated. In the short run, it needs to close at night, as they said. You need to put some tire spikes across the exit so people can leave, but they can't come back in, close the gate as they currently do. Problem solved for some of the problem is solved in terms of the law enforcement needs that are coming out there at night. This year, I hike in Wildwood and the Canelo open space areas probably 4 or 5 times a week. I go out there almost every night. The mustard is 10 feet tall. It's incredible. It's going to be a huge fire season. There's an amazing amount of fuel. Given the crowd that goes out there at night to party, there's likely to be a fire at some point. I'm just saying you're attracting a crowd, a party crowd that uses this place at night and also during the day. And something needs to be done. There's going to be some kind of a tragedy if something isn't done about this crowd coming to this single location. I worry more about my kids and letting them play outside, which they can't do because of the dangerous driving and the groups of young guys who are going to jump off the waterfall and carrying coolers of beer and suitcases. I've seen last week 7 people were carrying suitcases down to the waterfall. I don't know what was in them, but it's just not a safe environment for families at the current time, and it's because of the size and the composition of the crowd that's being attracted by all of the social media attention. Again, getting rid of this parking lot would be a big step in the right direction, and you also need some education and a bit more law enforcement ranger coverage for the area. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Chair Skay and members of the board, and my indulgences to the speakers who I have talked to and heard from at several meetings before, but I might cover some things that you've already heard, but I'm mentioning it now since we're in a different setting, so I'll repeat some of the things I've said, and that is that the parking lot, the inner and outer lot, have been in the park for decades, and for the most part, until the past few years, have existed, coexisted peacefully, the parking and the neighbor, and there's been a balance. It would be silly to not acknowledge that in the past 3 years, especially this past year, the crowds have gotten bigger and bigger. The number of visitors to Wildwood is essentially greater than we've ever experienced in the past. And then this particular year, with the ending of our historic 5-year drought, the water in the waterfall was tremendous. Matt Kuba pointed me to a YouTube video of the fall shortly after one of the worst of the rainstorms that had over 300,000 views in 48 hours from when it was posted. So that's a whole lot of people that are seeing a really cool looking waterfall gushing, and people wanting to get out and experience it. So no doubt you have been slammed by a lot of people wanting to kind of get out and be out in the nature. So staff has been listening, and we are, trying to address some of these things. I would, indicate some of the things that are in the works, but you probably haven't actually seen, exact improvements yet. As we've definitely been working with partners that post things on social media to really try to avoid featuring Wildwood. Specifically, our friends at the Canelo Valley Tourism Improvement District have removed their references to Wildwood and are focusing on a lot of trails elsewhere. We are working with the city, the Park District, COSCA, and our law enforcement are starting to look at what it might mean to change the official Google Maps address for the park. So if somebody says Wildwood Park, where is it? The county has indicated that they would not be adverse to having their address down at the mouth of Hill Canyon be the address. The issue for that, though, is we don't necessarily want hikers walking along the Hill Canyon treatment plant road because, chemical trucks, big vehicles are going up and down that road frequently, and it's not a safe situation. So to come up with and build an alternative trail route into Hill Canyon and cross the creek at the right location might be a great solution, but that's not an immediate fix. But it's something we're definitely working on and looking at. Short of that, just some of the background for the board. There was a community meeting with folks in the Wildwood community back in March, and a variety of ideas were thrown out, and the neighbors have a lot of different opinions on, some pave the parking lot, don't pave the parking lot, allow parking along Arbalest where there currently is no parking, or don't allow it. Sign the residential neighborhood no parking, or no parking by permit only on the weekends, or don't do that. So there's some things that we're still trying to sort out, but no doubt there are reasons to put some resources into and try to address what's going on in Wildwood. The rangers have started to try to get the gate closed, the primary entrance gate closed every evening before their shift ends, and have started doing that. So I appreciate the acknowledgement of that. But we have left the secondary gate, that's primarily an exit gate, open so that the vehicles that may still be in the lower or upper lot are not trapped in there, because we don't have a great system for dealing with the inevitable locked in resident who decided they would stay a little longer than they should have inside the park. So all that said, I have also been in communication with our local law enforcement, and they do encourage and are very comfortable with you guys calling the police after hours. I mean, that is totally legit. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't, think, hey, it's just a kid I hear. It's okay to call them. And honestly, calling them is great, because then we get the log and the understanding of the scope of the problem. So please don't even hesitate to do that. So I'm going to, if any other staff have something to add that I missed, but other than that, I think I've covered it.
I would like to address the dust situation. We are looking at a product that needs to be applied in the heat of summer. It does melt into the soil. It's a natural oil, pine oil, and so we are probably going to use that product. It will be at the if we can picture 10 days where we're going to have over 90 degrees, we'd close off half of the parking lot, apply that, let it rest for 5 days, and then do the other half. So we're hoping that happens in July. And we've used the product on trails and other places, and it's pretty effective if it's applied correctly. If it's not applied correctly, it fails. So please have some patience on that. And that, I'm fingers are crossed that works.
And then I'll also just add that, unfortunately, Wildwood is not the only park that's impacted. Every park agency, state parks, National Park Service, Conservancy, MRCA, are having an explosion of, it's a good thing that people are really interested in getting in the outdoors, but we're seeing trailheads really impacted and a lot more activity. And for some reason, waterfalls are the big thing. We have a problem in Malibu with one of our parks that has a waterfall. And so we feel your pain. We're trying very hard to address the issues you've raised, and I think there should be improvement in the future.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know this topic is not on the agenda for a discussion, so I cannot really say anything or ask anything other than that we have this item on our next agenda for our next meeting in the fall, September 13th. I know that's quite a few months from now, but certainly we should receive an update on this, and the information that I have received tonight, that I have heard tonight, is different from what I heard last night. New information such as shuttle buses and all that. I had not heard that. And then one thing, just for informational purposes, not really directly related to this, we had 6 rangers in 2006 and still 6 rangers in 2017. The acreage that has increased since 2006, what would you say in the open space? Is it 1,500 acres? Or
maybe another 1 or 2.
We are at it's over 15,000 now.
It's 15,000 now total, but since 2006, I could get you that number, but maybe 1,500 acres.
Yeah, it's not that much,
but it's
to warrant hiring another ranger. But that was
Well, we've had 6. I mean, we can definitely do an analysis of the growth in open space since the inception of COSCA until now, and
that
the change
is
in ranger numbers.
That would be another analysis that I would like to have on September 13th, so we can see whether we should or should not hire another ranger.
Okay.
We definitely need to look into that. And then regarding security issues and all that, again, I wish I could ask more questions, but it's not on the agenda and therefore not in compliance with the Brown Act.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Gibson.
Many of you came to the park board the other night. We did, while it was not on our agenda, we did bring it up in our budget discussion. Many of you had left. And while this board doesn't meet till September 30th, the city council meets, every 2 weeks? The park district meets every 2 weeks. We've encouraged our staff to not wait, to start moving on this, to start taking actions, working with city staff as to what they can do, and I don't want to wait till September to see a resolution on this. Jim knows, and we were fairly adamant about at the park board meeting the other night, talking about our budget discussion, and we've got another one coming up, I think, on our operational budget, and we're going to be adamant again that staff on our part, on our side of the equation, starts addressing this.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. We go to Mr. Jones.
Well, if we're going to be speaking about this non-agenda item, I mean, I get the impression we're speaking about it.
No.
We're not taking any action.
I'm not being critical, but I would like to say something, too. I've sat through a number of these meetings, and I'm in complete agreement with what you're asking. I mean, I've been here many years, and when there was not much activity, and well, they used to make Western movies up there and so forth. And this has kind of mushroomed, I believe, in the last few years. And I really feel for what you're going through, because you can't really have a nice existence in that type of situation with your streets full of cars all the time. And we want to get to the bottom of this. I know Joe has asked the staff. I've asked the staff to deal with this, and I know Matt and Tom and some of our other people are going to be working on this. But I would agree with what Joe just said. I don't want to wait until the fall. I want to do something right away. If I have to go out there myself and do something, I'm not quite as physically able as I was once, but I want to solve this problem right away, and so expect action.
Okay.
Not to interrupt,
Director
but I think
Bill, did you have another?
I think we really should stop the discussion in any more depth about this.
Well,
It's
I'm
not
just
an
going to tell
agendized matter.
staff, we need the opportunity. This has been going on long enough. This should have been on the agenda tonight.
And that
So
may
I
very
am
well
going to
be.
admonish staff for not bringing this up. You've heard it out there. It's been going on for 5 months. And for us to wait another quarter is ridiculous. So I'm admonishing staff for not recognizing the problem and getting this on the agenda.
Let's go on to presentations and announcements.
The one thing I wanted to say is that COSCA is the body. We are a co-joint agency between the city and the park district. So the COSCA is the responsible party to deal with this issue. And as such, the next meeting is in September. But Mr. Gibson is correct in that the park district, as well as the city, we have several council meetings where your concerns can be shared. And certainly, it's not that nothing will be happening between now and September. It is already being dealt with, and I just wanted to make sure that we're not actually just sitting idly by and wait until September, because this is a serious issue. So, and I will leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Presentations and announcements will go to the Caneo Open Space Trails Advisory Committee. Is that Mr. Bacharach?
Hi, Steve Bacharach, Chairman, Caneo Open Space Trails Advisory Committee. I just wanted to report on a few recent activities that we put on. There's the Caneo Challenge, which will end May 31st. We've had 63 participants so far and 6 people who've completed it. I expect those numbers to rise a lot in the last couple of weeks as people send me evidence that they've been doing all these trails. It's probably going to double the number of finishers if it's anything like last year or more. So it's nice to get a lot of people out involved in the event for a sixth straight year. And it is a very, very small way, admittedly, that we are trying to get people to other open spaces, too. We didn't pick any trails in Wildwood this year. There's the Spring Trail Workday. There's a PowerPoint with a few slides of pictures from that. So we'll get that up, I think. There are about 75 people involved. I was down in Conejo Canyon. From what I had heard, the Rangers were very happy with the work that was done. And for the Fall Trail Workday, which is usually our bigger one, for our 40th celebration, that will probably be in Hill Canyon or perhaps Sapwe Trails. And as far as Sapwe, it wasn't something I was going to comment on formally, but I can tell you that there's a Facebook page for that, and there's been quite a bit of excitement the last couple days. I'm an administrator on that, and I'm getting all sorts of people very, very into the whole Sapwe thing. It's a lot of excitement, so that's great. Trails Education Days, just under 1,200 kids. Lots of special needs kids this year, which was great. It was not overly hot. Great reports from the volunteers about the Rangers and how they did, shepherding everybody around. There are about 75 volunteers, and all the new volunteers did great. And the writing contest is being judged now. So we're in the process of doing that. Okay. So that was everything.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bachrach. Any questions of Mr. Bachrach? All right. And Anna Huber will report on the COSCA Volunteer Corps activity.
Hello, Madam Chair and COSCA board members. Our Volunteer Corps program has accomplished a variety of activities since our last meeting, and here are a few details. We continue to hold Trailhead Outreach events. Most recently, our volunteers monitored the Wildwood Trailhead on March 25th and the Los Robles Trailhead on April 15th. The monitoring occurred during the morning, and volunteers spent about 3 hours at each trailhead. At Wildwood, about 1,000 visitors were observed during the monitoring period, while at Los Robles, there were 108 in that same amount of time. Most visitors are hikers, which is consistent with past observations, and volunteers noted an increasing number of visitors from other cities in Ventura County and from beyond Ventura County. With regard to the Trail Watch, Trail Patrol, and Trail Adoption programs, we logged the following from February through April. For Trail Watch, we had 98 reports submitted and 144 hours donated. For Trail Patrol, we had 49 reports submitted and 148 hours donated. And for Adopt a Trail, we had 53 reports submitted and 158 hours donated. Trail adoption numbers remain consistent, with 51 volunteers having adopted 63 trails, and the Adopt a Trail program is also going to be featured in an upcoming issue of 805 Living magazine, so we may see a boost in these numbers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Consent calendar, this is for the meeting of February 8th. Do I have a motion? Or
move approval.
Been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Hearing no changes or objections, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And no abstentions or objections. First up, Ms. Mason, you'll report on the COSCA workshop update to priority list of areas for potential acquisition as open space.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'd like to direct the board's attention to a PowerPoint. And we'll begin the workshop with the presentation and then open it up to board questions and comments. And then we'll receive questions and input from the public. And then the board will have their final discussion and then provide directions to staff. We're here tonight to update COSCA's 2009 list of areas for potential acquisition as public open space. The first priority list was approved in 1996, and it's based on areas with important open space resources that were identified in the open space element of the Thousand Oaks General Plan. It's been updated 3 times to date, and the list provides a framework for decisions related to open space acquisitions. As a little background, as I mentioned, the first update was done the first priority list was approved by the board in 1996, and it contained 19 priority areas for acquisition. The second update and public workshop was held in 2004, and that priority list contained 16 areas for acquisition. And then the last update was done in 2009, and that list contained 17 areas that were priorities. And to begin the 2017 update process, staff reviewed the 2009 list and removed the developed and protected areas from the list and the map, and looked at undeveloped land around the city to see if new areas could be added to the list. We use a number of methods to protect land around the city. The majority of land of the open space around the city has been protected through dedication. So the dedications were required through the development permit process. That's about 85%. And then the second method is donation. We have received some donations, and as you know, the board approved the proposed Rasnow acquisition at the beginning of this year. So that is a good example of a donation. And we, of course, encourage donations of open space whenever anybody is interested in donating for a great cause and to get a tax write-off. What we do recently, the majority of our acquisitions have been market rate purchases, because most of the big plots of land have been developed around the city. We are not receiving much land through dedication anymore. So mostly we are negotiating with property owners, willing sellers only, of course. We get the land appraised and then negotiate the purchase price. We do buy some property through tax sales, which is a more economical way to buy property. So that's a county process where they sell properties that are in tax default. So we like to buy property that way because it's cheaper. And we've bought a lot of the land that we've acquired in the Skyline area through tax sales. And we've also acquired some in the Southern Ridge area through tax sale, which is the same area where the Rasnow donation is proposed. And then conservation easements are another way to protect land. We do have one conservation easement up in the Mount Clef Ridge area. This is in your packet, and this is the 2009 priority list map, and it shows the areas prioritized with the high priorities shown in red, medium priorities shown in orange, and the lower priorities shown in yellow. And I'll go over what the different priority levels are in a moment. This is the draft 2009 priority list map showing the areas that have been developed or have been removed, and then the areas that have been acquired since 2009 are now green. And you can see that the Rasnow, Rasnow acquisition that's in progress is shown in blue because it's not finalized yet, but it's moving forward. And I'll go over more of this map throughout this presentation. So the draft 2000 list, and I want to emphasize that this is a draft because this is just the initial proposal, and then we'll ask for public input to add to this list, and of course board input as well. So this draft list contains 16 priority areas, as well as trail crossing improvements and access. And the proposal includes one new area and one expanded area. So I'll go into those in a moment as well. The three priority groups are based on open space resource value. So that includes wildlife habitat, flora, scenic and archaeological resources, and a number of other ranking categories that you can see in your packet. Also, the level of protection expected through the development process. So what percentage of the valuable open space land will be protected automatically through a dedication through the development process? And then the likely purchase cost. So will it be prohibitively expensive, or do we anticipate that it'll be reasonably priced? So now I'll just briefly go through the different priority group categories. So the priority group 1 is the high priority, or the red, and it's significant and important open space resources which are not likely to be adequately protected through the development review process. In other words, the entire property could be approved for development and none of it would be required as dedication. And if 100% protection of the property is desirable, so the entire property contains really important open space resources and we want to protect the whole thing. And then these are the highest priority for purchase if there's a willing seller. Priority group 2, or the orange category, also contains important open space resources that may be adequately protected through the development review process. Or areas that may be prohibitively expensive to purchase. So an area, for example, that already has an entitlement on it. And for these, a partial protection would be acceptable. So just protecting a portion of the property. Priority group 3 is our lowest priority. These are the yellow group. They still contain important open space resources, but the resource value is lower than in priorities 1 and 2. And the resources can most likely be adequately protected through the development review process. And then these would be purchased only if they are available at a low cost. So through a tax sale or through somebody just wanting to offload the property and being willing to sell for below market rate. So we've made a lot of progress since 1996. We've acquired 177 parcels for a total of 2,413 acres of open space protected. So page 36 of your packet, that map is a nice fold-out map. And I'd like to commend Assistant Planner Anna Huber on her graphics and mapping work. She did a great job with all of these exhibits. So the light green are the areas that have been protected since 1996 until 2016. And some of these areas, I can just go around and show you a few with my mouse. So the Western Plateau area, Rancho Potrero, Vista Del Mar, formerly known as Site I, Canelo Ridge is a significant one there. They're all significant. Wood Ridge and Mount Clef Ridge up here. So those are just some highlights, but as you can see, land all over the city has been protected. So we've made great progress since 1996. We've also made great progress since 2009. So we've protected 99 acres, which was made up of 25 parcels since 2009. So the map showing the progress since then, since the last update, is on page 35 of the packet. And I'll just go around and highlight the areas that we've protected. So starting in the west, Vallecito, the areas we protected are also circled because the map, they look small on the map, but they're still significant. So Vallecito in the west, and then Dos Vientos down here in the southwest. That was the donation from Southern California Edison down there. And then, let's see, Southern Ridge area. So these parcels, we acquired about 11 parcels here. They're mostly adjacent to the pending Rasnow acquisition, and many of them have the existing Los Robles Trail crossing them. Then Canyon West, down here in the southeast section of the city. And then the Skyline area, we acquired a number of parcels. You can see in the little blow-up portion of the map. And then Morro Circle up here, which was donated by CRPD. And then adjacent to Morro Circle, MRCA acquired this other parcel that was on our list before. So. So in terms of significant changes to the 2009 list, the Canyon West area that I mentioned was removed, and 19 acres were protected through the dedication process. So that was a 24-acre parcel. So 5 acres were developed, and the city will receive the 19 acres as dedication. So that was an exciting acquisition. Beautiful property out there. And then the Vallecito area was also removed. 27 acres were preserved there through the dedication process again, and then the city actually came to a deal with the property owners out there and purchased 18 acres for below market rate price. And then just another significant change, of course, is the Southern Ridge pending acquisition. So that's 82 acres of the Southern Ridge that was approved by both the COSCA Board and City Council in 2017. Okay, so now I'll just briefly go through the different priority groups, and then I'll show you pictures of each of the different areas, and we'll move right along. So priority group 1 has 6 areas, and it consists of 802 acres and is made up of 142 parcels. And then priority group 2 has 5 different areas, consists of 614 acres, and is made up of 11 parcels. And then priority group 3 is our smallest group and has, again, 5 areas with 71 acres and 5 parcels. So the total acreage of the proposed priority list is 1,487 acres, and we still have 158 parcels to acquire. So still a lot of work to do. Okay. So now I'm just going to show you a picture of each of the different areas within each priority group. This is Sunset North, and it's the north area of the city, west of the 23 freeway. And you can also look at your map in the packet if you want to see where these are located. The letters correspond to the map in your packet. And there are also some extra packets for anybody who's interested in the audience. They're on the table over by the door in case you want to follow along. Okay. Okay, so next is Canelo Ridge, and that is south of the 101 freeway across from the Civic Arts Plaza. And we have a proposed expansion of the Canelo Ridge area. It's one small parcel and 2 small possible trail easements right where the Willow Lane curve is, just south of the 101 freeway. And this is an important trail corridor there. The Skyline Addition is, again, south of the 101 freeway, highly visible area. Southern Ridge. So Southern Ridge East is the southern flank of the city, of course. That's where the Rasnow property is located, and there are also still a number of properties intermixed in the Rasnow land that we would still like to acquire. A number of them are important trail corridors. So this is taken from Tarantula Hill looking south. And then Southern Ridge West is just to the west of the Rasnow area. So it just continues along that southern flank of the city. Broome Ranch is on the southwest end of the city. It's Broome Addition. So it's adjacent to Rancho Potrero, and it's south of the Vista Del Mar open space, which used to be called Site I. Conejo Mountain was added in 2009. This is north of the Dos Vientos open space and south of the 101 freeway. It's highly visible from the 101 freeway on the Camarillo grade, and it contains really significant archaeological resources and a number of obviously important natural resources as well. Sunset Northeast is on the north side of the city, and it's east of the 23 freeway. And it's actually in two pieces. Westlake South is south of the Los Robles open space area. And it's shown in two pictures here. That was also added in 2009. Herbs Road is east of Herbs Road and north of Jans Road, sort of in the middle of the city. Rockwell.
Is that adjacent to Sapway?
Is it?
Looks like it's pretty close.
It's close. I think a portion of it is. I don't have a aerial photo of it, but I think Sapway might extend that high up. There might be an easement in between, a SCE easement in between. I can confirm that for you in a little bit. Okay, then Rockwell. This is adjacent to the Arroyo Conejo open space across from the Rancho Conejo development and near the Rancho Conejo playfields. McCrae is on the west side of the Norwegian Grade, it's actually across from McCrae Ranch, and it's the YMCA property, portion of the YMCA property. Adventist Hill is on the north side of the 101. It's adjacent to the Seventh-day Adventist property. South Shore Hills is across from Lake Eleanor, and this area provides really beautiful views of the Lake Eleanor open space as well as just the Santa Monica Mountains. The Lake Eleanor area is kind of across the street from the South Shore Hills parcel and a little bit further to the south, and it's basically south of Lake Eleanor. Pretty rugged property out there. Simi Hills is the area north of the of Canaan Road in the kind of northern flank of the city in the North Ranch area, and this area was also added in 2009. And Sunset North is a new area, a proposed addition. It's again in the northern portion of the city. It's east of Moore Park, sort of actually southeast of Moore Park Road, and it's adjacent to existing open space. Oops, sorry. So the recommended changes, I mentioned them in the presentation already, but I'm just going to show you a little bit more detail about them. So we're suggesting that we add one new area, which is Sunset West that I just showed you. It's just one parcel. It's 5 acres. And then we are proposing to expand the Conejo Ridge area. So we recommend purchasing one parcel if it's available, and then possibly obtaining trail easements over 2 additional parcels, which would be about 400 linear feet of trail. And I'll show you some pictures now. So, okay. So this is the proposed 2017 priority map, and it shows the 2 proposed changes are shown circled in orange, but I'll just show you again. So this is the Sunset North area up here. And then this down here this is all the Conejo Ridge area. And the very small addition is just down in this area. This picture shows the aerial photo of the Sunset West area, and it's steeply sloping terrain. Much of it is over 25%, but it's got really nice habitat. It does unfortunately have some brush clearance and some Southern California Edison lines running through it. So that would all have to be taken into consideration, obviously, when the property is evaluated and appraised. We were in discussions with the property owner, but we haven't agreed yet on a purchase price. So because it's really not a very developable property, but we do feel like has some significant open space value. Then this shows
Ms. Mason, can you just show me again which is the one that is?
Oh, so it's this one right here.
To that little triangle. That's it.
That's it. It's just 5 acres.
Okay.
And then this is a blow up of that, and it shows the topography here, so you can see it's really steep. And then these are even smaller. So this is just proposed expansion of the Canelo Ridge open space, which is existing already. And the area proposed for expansion is down here. And I'll show you a blow up of that. So we're proposing that this would be good for acquisition in fee, and then potentially we could purchase trail easements, or trail easements could be dedicated to us over these 2 parcels. Because we have a trail actually that goes along Conejo School Road. It starts in, the Glider Hill and Hillcrest open space areas. So you could potentially, stay on a trail all the way from Glider Hill down to into this area, and then all the way to Potrero Road, or you could take trails to Triunfo Canyon area. So this is a really important trail corridor. We haven't had access across these small little areas, so we haven't been able to actually build any trails up here. But and actually I can go back. So you can see that this would really bring you into a large protected open space area. Conejo Ridge open space is large, so, and then it takes you into Los Robles open space, and so. Okay. So the priority list is dynamic. It can change. It's always changing, and we're always trying to acquire new open space. And it's a guide for potential acquisitions. In order for any purchases to occur, we have to have a willing seller, and of course, adequate funding sources. And while we have this list, other areas may be considered for acquisition as opportunities arise. For example, the parcel in the Dos Vientos open space that Edison donated to COSCA was not on the priority list, actually, because we didn't know it was available. So, and in conclusion, the 2017 priority list reflects preservation actions and potential additions to the open space system. And staff is now seeking input from the public and direction from the board on the draft list. And then once we get that input, we will prepare the final priority list for the board's review and approval at the next meeting. And I would also just say that we do this update to the priority list on a regular basis because we feel like open space preservation is extremely important, and we want to be able to acquire open space when it's available. And we do obviously try to manage the open space as well and as responsibly as we can. But if we can acquire more land for the public to enjoy permanently, then we want to continue to acquire the land as we can. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Questions? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Director Bill LaPena.
Thank you. Conejo Mountain, which was added in 2009, is now added to the priority list, I believe, of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. Is that owned by operating engineers? Who owns it now?
It's actually owned by the the company that runs the mine.
Oh,
there, yeah.
Formerly was operating engineers.
Okay.
Yes.
That's when I was in negotiations with Site I, they wanted to also offer that up as a packaged deal at that time. Okay, if it's what I'm thinking, yes. So now it's that mine and yes, the quarry. Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Director Jones, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wondered about the process, Shelley, that you go through the process. Do you apply these 16 criteria here on page 2?
We do.
So it must be a rather exhaustive process. I mean, for us to digest all this, after you've been through it, and you assign a value 1, 2, or 3 to each parcel.
Correct, and then we total them
and
up.
then you add up all the 1s, 2s, and 3s. And
right.
That's how you get your list.
Yes.
Have you found that this has been an accurate or a good way to do it in the past?
Yes, we have. I think it's a good objective way to evaluate the property.
Yeah. I mean, we're sort of here tonight wanting to, I can just speak for myself, this is an awful lot to digest, and to say, well, I think this should be a 1 or this should be a 2 and so forth, because I haven't had the chance to go through each property with these 16 criteria. So what I see is the fruits of how many people are involved in this process?
COSCA staff, so 5 or 6.
And how often do you do this exercise?
It's been done 3 times in the past, so this is the 4th time. And I would also just say that most of these properties have already been evaluated and were already approved by the board in 2009. So the only 2 that are new or that are being proposed by staff at this time as changes that weren't already approved are the 2 that I just showed at the end. So
have you generally found in the past that as a result of this process that you are satisfied with the results, that these have proven to be the ones that are the most advantageous to be pursued and be secured?
Yes. And I think it's also a really helpful process and a really helpful list to have because it helps us to target the properties to try to acquire. So after this process is done, and once the board approves the list at the next board meeting, hopefully, then we can actually contact the top priority property owners and start discussions with them to try to acquire more land.
Well, it's certainly a very enlightening, and it really shows a lot of work. And I'm going to save all these maps and pictures of the various properties because I wasn't aware of all that had transpired in this regard. But it looks like a very thorough and comprehensive process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will note that Mark Town actually worked on developing the scoring back 25 years ago or however long it was.
And he reviewed this list as well, the updated list. So he had some input here too.
Are there any other board questions? We do have one public speaker card. If not, Mr. Warman, would you like to come up and address the board?
Thank you, Board. My name is Paul Warman, and I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. And I had a question about the status of some of the parcels which are currently undeveloped but not identified on the priority acquisition map. One of the most unusual seems to be there is a wetland parcel off of the 101 near Windy Drive. It is off and on flooded, and it is, I believe, currently recognized by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy as a work program acquisition target. So I was wondering why then it is not a priority for COSCA as the state board, as a state organization. The state board decides that it should be acquired, but not the city's board. And then I was wondering about if other parcels which are currently undeveloped within the city have also been studied or looked at there are probably too many. They're too numerous to say, but how have these remaining parcels been determined to be as part of the acquisition map, as opposed to some of the other undeveloped parcels within the city? And so I was wondering if if those two questions could be further elaborated on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worman. And I believe you're speaking of what is commonly referred to as the Borchard Wetlands. Yes. Ms. Mason, do you have any?
Sure. That property was not added to the priority list because it has been the subject of a number of lawsuits that the city was involved with. So it wasn't appropriate to add to this list. And then the other undeveloped parcels around the city, we're always open to suggestions of parcels to add to the list, but we go through a pretty exhaustive process looking at the properties around the city, and we evaluate them. So if there's a vacant parcel that seems like it should be on the list, certainly you can run it by us, but probably there's something significant about it that kept it off of the list. So, for example, it is already approved for development, or there's something,
or it's just
that
an isolated parcel.
Yeah.
The idea is to try and see is it a cohesive part of an overall open space system, and especially the so-called ring of open space around the city. That's kind of a overarching principle for land acquisition.
In some cases, we do have some island parcels, but we do try to mainly acquire the parcels that are part of, that would be connected to existing open space. Yes.
Okay. Are there any other people of the public that wanted to address this issue? Why don't you go up to the mic, if you would, please?
This is the first meeting I've ever been to of your sorts. I was wondering, how and where does any money come from the entities that make up COSCA that has a budget for maintaining the parcels you already have? Putting a moratorium on any more acquiring and using the money. What do you do to raise money? Does it come from taxes? Does it come from, where does it come from? Or don't you have a budget to do that?
Sure, I can. I'll take a stab at that. The budget is a 50-50 split between the Canelo Ridge Park District and the City of Thousand Oaks. The budget's about 1.25, 1.3 million. So we each put in about 650,000 or so.
Oh, so you do?
Yeah. It's
every year.
Every year after year. Acquisition money. Traditionally, the bulk of the Ring of Green has been dedicated by property owners and developers. The individual acquisition opportunities that come along, the money can come from grants. The money can come from. We do have a buck a fee on a golf course round that goes into an acquisition pot, if you will. So the golfers out of city golfers pay an extra buck a round, and that builds a little pot of money that helps with acquisitions. Cell tower revenue, I think, has been also part of it. So we have a couple cell towers that generate some revenue. And then if there's just the right opportunity that comes along, we figure out a way to maybe even use, the agency's own resources. So
out of that budget, is that pays staff and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a very tight budget.
Yeah, I can see that. Yes. Because I think that where you have areas that are, developments, and you have parks that are close to those developments, and the parks are overgrowing onto the development and nothing's getting done. I mean, our homeowners have trouble getting fire insurance because of Wildwood Park. And so we have to do something about this, and we go and do what we can to help them get insurance. So to me, I would think, yes.
This isn't quite on the workshop on the agenda item. We appreciate your comments.
Okay.
The city attorney is cautioning me that I think we're going
All right.
further afield. But
All right.
thank you for your comments, sir. Claudia.
Thank you. Regarding the Borchard Wetlands also, not only is it a site that involved litigation, but it is also being studied by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for mitigation because it is a flood zone. And because it is a flood zone, the FEMA insurance of hundreds of homes around this area, Newberry Park, has risen quite a bit. It is expensive, so the city is working in concert with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to come up with a mitigation plan that would eliminate this particular land from FEMA, from the flood zone, so it wouldn't be a financial burden to the residents anymore. And it is also dangerous because our emergency setup in that for any catastrophe or natural disaster, the staging area is right there in the floodplain, which is the reason we need to fix that. And that's why the city is not looking at that parcel. And I just lost my thought on the other item that I wanted to state. But, okay, maybe it'll come to me later. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the board on the acquisition priority list? Yes, Director Gibson.
Yeah, I would... We need to work to leverage our list with other agencies. The fact that Santa Monica Conservancy has identified Canelo Mountain as a priority, I would see us, and given the size and magnitude and what it would take a lot of resources. I really wouldn't, hey, it'd be nice, but it's really not a high priority for us. It's never going to happen. It's too big. Okay, I think, Claudia mentioned there was an opportunity back when maybe to include it as part of a deal, but and while it's I think we ought to keep it on a priority list. But sometimes when a list of things on a high priority list, another agency will look like, oh, well, they're going to go after that. Okay, well, you may disagree. Okay, but I would like to see that decreased in priority for us, but leave it on the list.
I'll actually counter that by saying having it as a high priority actually would, I think, assist in whether it's another agency or even COSCA going for other state grant funds. It improves the coast prosperity sphere, as it were.
We can agree to disagree.
Okay. Yes.
And now I remember the open space funding. We do have the open space preservation fund, and yes, money is coming from the golf course, but the city is also funding that open space fund with $100,000 every year, and that is why we have an open space fund that now has over $1 million in the bank, and that fund is being used to help with the acquisition of the Rasnow Peak area, the 82 acres that was mentioned. So that is how we are paying for it. And regarding Conejo Mountain, because it was actually a priority already in 2009, I remember the negotiations that were taking place were before 2009 in Site I. They were, I believe, in 2002, 2003, and therefore it wasn't purchased because it had not been added to the priority list, not until 2009. So I just wanted to clarify that. Otherwise, had it been a top priority, I'm sure we would have gone ahead with this package.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there are no other comments, staff has written down all of our concerns, and this will come back in September for ratification. Is that the plan? Okay,
that's accurate. So, can the board tell me what you would like to do about the Conejo Mountain? Can you get a consensus on that?
Okay.
Staff heard our comments. They can come back with a final list. We're not making a decision tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so I heard that two
Do
people
we need
support
a straw
the high
poll
priority.
on?
I'll phone you and tell you what to do later.
As far as high
Okay.
priority.
Take our consideration.
What does the city attorney say about whether we need to vote on this proposal or not? Oh, I see.
Presentation, and then staff will come back in September with the final list for you to vote on.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
And presumably it could even be modified then, although
Yes,
I'm
that's
hoping
true.
it'll be a fait accompli. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very thorough. Our next action item is the Trails Advisory Committee appointments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a brief PowerPoint. Okay, so this year we had 4 scheduled vacancies for COSTAC. Public notification regarding the vacancies was posted on March 3rd, and 15 applications were received during the filing period. Interviews were held on April 6th, 10th, and 11th, and the interview panel provided guidance to the nomination subcommittee. The subcommittee recommendations are as follows. For members, we have Mulaney Ashen, who's here with us tonight, Steve Bacharach, who presented earlier, Ginny Bowers, and Dorothy Sullivan. And Steve, Ginny, and Dorothy are all incumbents, while Mulaney is a new applicant. And for alternates, the subcommittee recommends Carl Kolvenbach, Kira Krukowski, Kathleen Perkinson, and Christina Robertson. Kira and Kathleen are currently alternates, and Carl and Christina are new applicants. I'd also like to share some background information on each of the nominees. Steve is the current chairperson of COSTAC and is a bicyclist and runner. He manages the Trail Watch program and also coordinates the annual Caneo Open Space Challenge event. Ginny is an equestrian and has helped to coordinate our annual Trail Workday events for the past 28 years. Dorothy is a bicyclist, hiker, and runner and participates in Trailhead Outreach events and Trails Education Days as well. She's also one of our trail adopters. Mulaney is a retired school teacher and has participated in Trail Workdays events and Trails Education Days for many years. She's an avid hiker and also participates in the Bike Bell program as a bell box stalker in the Los Robles Open Space area, and she's been a member of the Caneo Open Space Foundation for the past 12 years. Kira is a trail runner and also a member of the Caneo Open Space Foundation. She works as an elementary school teacher and is motivated to educate the community about the importance of protecting open space. Kathleen is a hiker and is interested in making our trails more approachable to novice hikers, and she was a founding member of the Tejon Ranch Conservancy. Carl is a bicyclist and hiker. He's participated in Trail Workday events, volunteers as one of our bell box stalkers, and as an employee of Amgen, earned their Environmental Champion Award in 2015. Christina is a hiker and a local school teacher. She's passionate about protecting open space and sharing its benefits with others, and she's also here with us tonight. And with that, staff recommends that the Board of Directors approve the COSTAC members and alternates as recommended by the nomination subcommittee.
Any questions or a motion?
No questions. I move approval.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you very much. If no other discussion, all in favor of the slate, please say aye. Aye. Any abstentions or negatives? No, very good. Thank you so much, and congratulations to our Trails Advisory Committee.
Who is it that's here tonight?
Melanie.
Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Mulaney and Christina.
Yes.
You're the hiker? Do you want to demonstrate some hiking for us tonight?
Oh, dear.
I got
You're
out
on
of
the
breath
job.
just coming up the ramp to get in here, so I don't think I can do that anymore. Good. I think I made it.
Okay, let's go on to the annual financial report for fiscal year 2015-2016. Ms. Faye Menken, the accounting manager, will present this. No.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm here tonight just to present the fiscal year 15-16 COSCA annual financial report. The finance department of the city prepares the report, and it's audited by our external auditors, Lansell and Lundgaard.
Could you speak just a little closer to the mic?
Sorry.
Thank you.
So I'll just go over very briefly a few highlights, and mainly I'm here in case anyone has any questions. So the net position of COSCA as of June 30th, 2016 was $75.7 million. 74.4 of that was invested in capital assets, mainly land, and the balance, the $1.3 million, is restricted for future acquisitions. As Jim mentioned earlier, the open space maintenance, the costs were $1.2 million in fiscal year 15-16, and that was completely covered by 50-50 by the city and by Parks and Rec. It was a slight increase from the year before. And as part of the increase in the cost was salary and benefits, just a little bit, and then there was some extra trail maintenance. And then land purchase, the only land purchase last fiscal year was $16,000. It was for a couple of parcels on the Southern Ridge. And then there was rental income of about $80,000, which comes from leasing the land to some of the satellite antennas. That's really just some of the highlights. So I'm available if you have any questions about the report.
I just have one question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, there's probably a very simple explanation for this, but why did the improvements in equipment net value go down from 2015 to 2016?
Depreciation.
The net value? Oh, from depreciation, probably.
It's depreciation.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Ms. Minkin? If not, this is just a receive and file. We're not taking any action.
This may be, if I may ask one more thing.
Sure.
You call your standards you use GASB,
mm-hmm.
but it's Government Standards Accounting Board, right? So why isn't it GSAB?
It's Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So it's GASB. GASB?
But so it's not Governmental Standards Accounting?
No. Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Oh, okay.
We like our acronyms.
You like GASB, huh?
We do.
You're the great GASB, are you?
Really?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Informational items. Ms. Hubert? A little closer to the mic, if you would.
I'll even turn it on a little bit better. Thank you. I'll be speaking about items A through E. The schedule you have in your packets on page 62 lists the events we've planned for COSCA's 40th anniversary so far. That's also posted on COSCA's website, and we regularly announce the upcoming events on our Facebook page. To that list, we're still planning to add an open space inspired art and photography show, and we look forward to having coverage by the Acorn and KCLU at some point. And if the board has any suggestions for activities that they might like to see added, please do let us know. And then moving on to 7B. That's in your packet on pages 63 and 64. We have a new trail map for the Caneo Canyons area. The release of this map has been very timely as open space usage rates increase and visitors discover this western portion of our open space. Then for 7C, starting on page 65 of your packet, we've included our new Wildflower ID guide. This was produced in-house with input from senior environmental planner, now retired, Rick Burgess, and it's turned out to be quite popular and is available for download on our website. Item 7D, the last of our new publications, is an updated bird checklist, and that's on page 74 and page 75. The initial version was produced in the mid-'80s, and this update reflects changes to species classifications, and that reflects some additions and deletions regarding species presence and abundance. And these revisions were compiled in collaboration with the Caneo Valley Audubon Society. And lastly, for Arbor Earth Day, and I have a brief PowerPoint on that. As in years past, COSCA hosted a booth at Arbor Earth Day this past April in conjunction with a neighboring booth hosted by the Caneo Open Space Foundation. Ranger Kari and I staffed the booth for the entire day, and we had a great time chatting with many different people about our open space. And the information we traditionally share about animals, like what their fur and tracks look like, is perennially popular with kids. We also distributed open space maps, our guide for dog walkers, brochure, our new Wildflower ID guide, and the bird checklist as well. And especially for COSCA's 40th anniversary, we gave away hats with our anniversary emblem, Valley Oak seedlings that were grown from acorns collected here at City Hall, and special birdhouses. And all those items were very well received. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. The map is fantastic. It's a lot of work to put these together, but you have elevations and distances, and I like your font too. So, but having the flower photos is fantastic. So nice to have that. Really, really good.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by board members? Thank you. Up to the RASNOW update, Ms. Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a brief update for the board. The title reports are in progress, and we expect to receive them at the end of this month. They're taking longer than normal because we had so many parcels to get title reports for, so that was to be expected. The donation agreement has been drafted and is under review right now, and staff and outside counsel met with 4 neighbors who live on the private road just below the RASNOW gate. And listened to their concerns, which included added trail users on the private road, added vehicular traffic on the private road, and the trail reroute south of their property, so uphill from their property, which is what was shown on the draft trail map that the draft trail reroute map that we showed at the last COSCA board meeting. So staff is evaluating their concerns and working through them. Okay. I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Bilden-Pena.
Will we be able to work through these concerns with these neighbors? Because the road is still owned by the RASNOWs.
Correct. We are, I think we can work especially on rerouting the trail to a different location. We can route it so that it doesn't go behind their houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 2 issues, we're going to plan on installing signs, and we're exploring some other options. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Kuba, our COSCA Ranger Operations and Maintenance Report, please.
And I wrote mini report because it's small. As it's been said, weed abatement this year and trail clearing is quite dramatic, and actually this is on the Lindmere track. I have a PowerPoint. I should have said that first so that we were looking at the actual photo. So, we've had an incredible year of growth, and we are trying to get to every trail, but with 140 miles of trail, it's difficult. We have a contract crew that we bring out of Ojai that has been doing the bulk of the work, and then the rangers are hitting the trails that are higher priority. So that's the bulk of the work the rangers have been working on. Just going back in time a little bit, when we did have good soil moisture right after the rains, that soil moisture led to some rather extensive undercutting of the trails. I will also say that the person that's standing in that hole, Ethan, was a contract worker that we had over the past year, and he was just hired by Ventura County Fire Department. So I'm proud that our staff are moving on to bigger and better things. It's very cool. A little bit of a loss for us, but good for Ventura County Fire. So we brought in some of our heavier equipment from CRPD, filled in the trench, smoothed it out, and so the trail from the inner parking lot down the what we call the switchbacks down to the cave, really nice now. We took the outer berm off, and so the drainage, we shouldn't have that kind of cutting ever again because we were able to do the work this year. The rangers just went through another round of wilderness first aid, which is always very dramatic in the hallways and outside patio at Hillcrest Center because the injuries are very realistic, and it's quite humorous if you're going out to lunch and they're all wrapped up like that. But it pays off so often with the rangers. They're able to handle minor first aid and help people out, and that's a big, good skill for the rangers. This is my regular how does it get into open space picture. And this one's really good because they brought a trash can along with them. So the cleanup was a little bit, well, I'm not going to say easier because hauling couches a half mile down a trail is not easy, but it must not have been easy to get it up there. And what's interesting is there's an end table there that had a drawer, and in the drawer was bug repellent and sunscreen and a variety of other items. If you notice on the trash can, it says Canelo Valley Unified School District. We were able to set up a camera at this location and share the photographs of the individuals that were using it with the school, and it was magically cleaned up. So this is some video, pictures of Elvis in a movie called Flaming Star that was shot about half of it in Hill Canyon and half of it up off of near Lynn Road. If you've never seen that movie, okay.
I've seen it, but
okay, so you can
when
speak
I was
to
a
it, Rory.
young whippersnapper.
And just because I always try and end with a sunset, but this time because of the wonderful rain we had this year, I'm going to end with a couple of great shots of rainbows, and that's one of my favorite pictures that we have on the server right now. So, thank you so much for listening.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Kuba. We have time for board member comments. I actually have one. Monday night, the Caneo Recreation Park District did their Gratitude Circle dedication in honor of a founding member of COSCA, Doris Granholm. She was on the Park District Board, and she and Francis Prince were the instigators, along with Tex Ward, to create this agency. And she's deceased now, unfortunately, but she was a fantastic contributor to all good things in Caneo Valley, not just open space and parks and recreation, but Caneo Future Foundation and PTA, and she had Alliance for the Arts, Stagecoach Inn. She did a lot, and I appreciate the park board honoring her. It was a lovely, lovely ceremony. Any other board member comments? Hearing none, I believe we have a closed session. Ms. Lieberman, you want to call the item for us?
Yes, this is a conference with real property negotiators, properties 615 Lone Oak Drive and 779 Gloucester Lane, Thousand Oaks. Agency negotiators, Shelley Mason, COSCA manager, and Felicia Lieberman, COSCA attorney. Negotiating party, Subhash B. Kakari Trust. Under negotiation, price and terms pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. I don't anticipate that there'll be anything to report on at the conclusion of closed session.
All right. Thank you. Then we will adjourn to closed session, and our next meeting is September 13th.